peanut butter and jelly, spaghetti and meatballs, undead monsters, and young, innocent teenage girls. Some things just go together.
Hollywood has proven over and over again that despite the underlying creep factor, the Beauty and the Beast story really sells.
So listen up and take note. We're giving you the secrets to box office gold this week on The Couch.
Do you want a surefire script that is guaranteed to get picked up by big Hollywood producers and is then bound to make money off of unsuspecting teens, tweens, and middle-aged moms?
Write a mon-rom. That's monster romance. The kind of movie that doesn't require a plot or interesting characters, just these 5 guidelines.
First off, you need a monster. It's not a monster romance if you don't have a monster. Now, generally, these are supernatural creatures that were or could be human or appear to be human, but have something wrong with them. Something catching, hopefully. You know, like a werewolf or a vampire or a zombie. But there's some discussion about whether aliens count, whether would robots count, like what is a monster?
Try to mix it up. Do what feels right to you. Our next guideline is the romance guideline. There should be somewhere in there sex or sexual frustration at not having sex or just straight up romance with hugging and kissing and declaring that you will love them until the end of time.
Whatever floats your boat or blows your skirt, gets your engines running. Our third guideline is that there must be angst. Now, this is sort of a natural offshoot of there being monsters and romance. If you have monsters in love with humans, there's going to be angst. Now, we should say angst does not necessarily a good film make.
No, it's just kind of a contrived way to create tension that oftentimes is pretty unnecessary.
But it's addictive, like chips.
You really can't eat just one. Our 4th guideline is the hotness guideline. You need something that is hot. An actor, a scene, some point, someone needs to cross their legs and breathe in deeply.
The hotness factor is really kind of a byproduct of it being a Hollywood movie and being a movie.
And a romance.
And a romance.
Nobody wants to watch unattractive people.
It's a sad but true fact.
Sad and true.
Our final guideline is the cheese factor. Let go of any delusions that you have that this is going to be a brilliant piece of film. That's not what Mon-Rom is really about.
Seriously, think about your audience for a second. Do you really think they're looking for a poignant critique on society's failings? Because you might want to rethink a couple things.
So speaking of Mon-Roms, Julie and I finally got out to see Warm Bodies. Yay!
And I went into this movie really expecting it to hit every Mon-Rom guideline to a T.
And to a certain extent, it does.
However, when we got to the cheese factor, it kind of fell apart because it was actually really good. We should preface this review by saying there will probably be spoilers.
That's an unfortunate fact of life, like Twilight.
One of the highlights of this movie is definitely the relationship between R and Julie, because it is actually a relationship.
Unlike Twilight.
I think a lot of times with Mon-Rom movies, especially with vampire movies, it's more about, lust and sex and kind of the physical things that attract us to each other.
They make very shallow romance stories rather than deep relationship stories.
And what you got in this movie was the foundations of a friendship that built into a romance. Because, let's face it, there's an issue of blood flow with zombies, so anything other than hand-holding is going to be a little difficult, if not impossible.
And also necrophilia
is not attractive to anyone. Another great thing about R and Julie is that they get something out of the relationship. Each person gets something out of the relationship.
Unlike Twilight.
There was never a point in Twilight where I felt that Edward was getting anything out of the relationship.
Or that Bella was getting anything good out of the relationship.
Yeah, mostly she had a codependency problem. Both characters in Warm Bodies are getting something. R is getting this sense of connectivity, and she is literally bringing him to life. She also is getting a connectivity that she's been lacking, and she also kind of comes alive because even though physically she is whole, emotionally and psychologically she's kind of dead on the inside. One of the brilliant things about the script is that R's love is shown, not told.
Unlike Twilight.
Edward talks a lot about protecting Bella and keeping her safe. R actually does those things for Julie.
And the showing, not telling, is actually dictated by the characters because R is a zombie. He can't speak. So, although his internal monologues are very articulate and a joy to listen to, his actual spoken lines are very few and far between. Which is particularly hilarious because the story is Romeo and Juliet. I don't know if you got that from the fact that it's R and Julie, and aside from the fact that it's the best interpretation of Romeo and Juliet that I've seen in a long time, it's really funny to watch Shakespeare as performed by people who communicate mostly through moans. That's just inherently funny. Romeo and Juliet's story is used as a structure, so the script is built on top of it, and it allows it to have more form and to have an overarching theme, and to then broadcast out. They've sort of taken the bits of Romeo and Juliet that I really like, the way that this story of love is then broadcast and creates peace in the city. That is lifted directly from Romeo and Juliet and then put into Warm Bodies, which is a brilliant, brilliant message. And it's this sort of broader societal implications that make this such a good movie.
And some monroms on the rise. Last week we had Beautiful Creatures come out. That's a nice twist on the tale because it's the girl who's the monster. And as for monsters, she's actually a witch, or caster.
She's a witch. And continuing that trend of young adult books being turned into movies, we have City of Bones coming out too, although the monsters are actually like part angels, and there might be werewolves, and maybe warlocks, and Lily Collins' eyebrows.
It's a hodgepodge. It's a hodgepodge.
We'll see. And on television, next fall, NBC will be bringing out Dracula with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, which, we'll see if that's just like The Tudors, but with more blood, and maybe set in Victorian times, maybe?
Maybe? The CW is also doing a spin-off of their wildly successful Vampire Diaries. It's called The Originals, dealing with the original vampires and possibly set in medieval times?
Certainly if either or both of these are historically set, we are not expecting them to be historically accurate or good.
Absolutely not. And finally, if you are a Nicholas Hoult fan, as we are, and you should be, he is starring in the upcoming Jack and the Giant Slayer, directed by Bryan Singer of X-Men fame.
This is one of those movies like Beautiful Creatures, a seemingly B-list movie with weirdly A-list actors.
Ewan McGregor is in there.
Probably not naked.
Probably.
Stanley Tucci.
Ian McShane is in there.
These are big-name people for a movie that looks like it's gonna be very cheesy.
Yeah.
So that's what we're excited about this week.
Tune in next time.
And until then,
Keep watching.